I remember reading something in the Bible that said, your sins will affect your family 7 generations from now.
7 generations down, the mouse's descendants will have a hypervigilant amygdala. So that overabundance of cortisol. When we have negative people or abusive people, even within our energy field, it negatively impacts us. Our nervous system syncs. So energy begets energy. So we are syncing with everyone around us. And that's why, again, we can't be around toxic, unhealthy people that are negative and harming us. We just can't do it. When we start to defend ourselves, that we are shrinking, that we are trying to, rationalize and reason ourselves out of the abuse.
Shattered to unbreakable. Listen here, sweet sister. Whether you think you have one little crack or you are shattered into a billion pieces, this podcast is going to give you the resources, tools, and skills to help piece yourself back together to form a beautiful, unique, solid, and unbreakable masterpiece. You are listening to Shattered to Unbreakable, the Reclaim Podcast. Let's talk.
Because your children are watching. And like with my ex, that was his family system. Father was abusive to mother. So that's all he got patterned into understanding.
Okay.
And you can't do anything with that. If that is the conditioning and the person is not doing the work, there's just no way. Wow. And that's where so many women, and I'm lucky I didn't have children with this individual. That's where so many women, so many men, whatever that looks like, they just finally have to walk away. And it's unfortunate. You love that person, you just can't work within that. It doesn't work. And then modeling for the children, this person's not healthy. This person's it's never going to work. You can't force someone to be healthy. You can't wish someone to be healthy. You can't pray someone to be healthy. They have to do that foundational work and then the work together.
I love the study of epigenetics when it talked about like us having genes and then the environment either tightening around the gene or letting it loose. Made so much sense. And I always wrap everything back around to the Bible, but I remember reading something in the Bible that said, your sins will affect your family 7 generations from now. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's so mean for God to keep track like that. But when I studied epigenetics, it made total sense because what you do is either loosing or tightening genes in your kids that then either are prominent or not in their kids that are then, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have to be perfect now because I don't know. Anyway.
More science to that. So when you said 7 generations, it's really fascinating because I love seeing aspects of the Bible, aspects of spirituality being validated within science, because we actually know 7 generations down, if you traumatize a mouse, their amygdala, which triggers the adrenals to produce that cortisol, which triggers us to stay in hypervigilance, which weakens nerve tone, which we want that really strong. That's what keeps us nervous system flexibility and that resilience, but also, with that overabundance of cortisol and sympathetic dominance, that's what breeds disease, inflammation, right? So 7 generations down, the mouse's descendants will have a hypervigilant amygdala. So that overabundance of cortisol. So that's so fascinating. And I just really, because the, spirituality, it's the all-knowing, that's the collective, it's like, that information was already there. We knew that. And now we're validating it in science. And that's what I love about quantum physics. It validates spirituality.
I want to pick your brain about, we need to do a whole nother episode on this, but I'm obsessed with quantum physics and I don't even know really what it is.
Quantum physics is our energy field. So it's the energy outside of us. It's the vibratory pattern of our atoms, as well as the influence on negative and positive ions.
Yeah.
And so our energy field extends 25 feet outside of us. So when we have negative people or abusive people, even within our energy field, it negatively impacts us. Our nervous system sync. So energy begets energy. So we are syncing with everyone around us. And that's why, again, we can't be around toxic, unhealthy people that are negative and harming us. We just can't do it.
No.
And it's subconscious, right?
It made me sick. It changed me. Like it made me sick to be around toxicity. And the moment I got away, the recovery process happened so quickly. And then obviously it still took years, but it did when I cleansed the air around me and had more positive people around me. It's amazing how fast I healed and I started thinking clearly and I got my memory back and I started feeling better, sleeping better. all the things. It was nuts.
Checks carry a little bit of energy. I mean, it's just energy. This isn't scary. This isn't, it's just energy. We have to understand that energy is everywhere. The heart's field is bigger than our brain field, right? So it extends even further out than us. And so there's this saying in some of the plant medicine world that once the heart is right, everything's right. So keeping in Ayurvedic medicine, when we're using more herbs and natural things, that when the heart's right, everything's right. So when we get individuals within our heart space, that's why it's really difficult to get rid of their energy, as well as it's difficult to recover. And so that's kind of what you're talking about.
There's also stuff in the Bible that I might be taking out of context, full disclaimer. But I do remember hearing or reading how God says that even the rocks weep for you, even the rocks pray for you and sing for you, and like he gives energy words to inanimate objects. So I'm like, I don't feel like that's not biblical. My mom's like, he made the rocks. He made the energy. He made the crystals. He made them for us to discover and use.
Everything has light. God is light. He's
Mm.
the creator. We need light.
Yeah.
So I can see that and I believe that. I'm into the crystals. I'm into all of the things that have an energetic shift. But yes, there are tools. And even, when we start looking at like in the integrative medicine kind of world of plants and the energy that they carry, and, God made those, that's our tools. So it is interesting when you start looking at stuff and then we start talking about like heat in the body and, get into Eastern medicine of stuff. It's like, yeah, the heat in the body that like, if you have dampness from sadness or anger, you need calming. And so it's a really interesting, all of these things that God gave us to balance the energy within us, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like.
That's so cool. Well, yeah, okay, this is my fault, but I took us off on a tangent. But as we were talking about athletes, because I think this is really cool. I've not had a podcast episode that is focused on the mental health of athletes. And so I think this is like a godsend that you were like, hey, I'm ready to tell my story. And I didn't even know that you worked with athletes at the time. But this is huge because in the athletic world, you don't get to really choose your coach at all times, especially
Nope.
when you're in those developmental stages. My daughter gets whatever coach is assigned. She doesn't get to move schools if she doesn't like the coach. She doesn't get to just not go to practice. She joined the team, So in the world of, I guess I'll ask you two questions. In a world where we as parents are still in charge of our children and protecting them, what can we look for as far as how to help them navigate maybe toxic teammates or coaches? And then the second part of the question is, how can maybe a collegiate or a professional athlete handle that same issue on their own?
Well, the thing is with it all is, yes, we can't choose the environment. So I talk about desensitizing the athlete to the environment. And so, we're able to do the work within, because again, the alpha imprinting is a combo of the brain spotting, the neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, somatic experience, EFT tapping, matrix re-imprinting, breath work. And so we have all those aspects, the frequency medicine, because we actually use sounds that drop you into the altered state. And so what we do is we go in and we reprocess all of the negative things that the coach has said, and then we go into the desensitizing of what they could say or all the negative things that could happen. So you can
Mhm.
actually desensitize someone to not be traumatized over and over and over. But when it comes to also just kind of some energy dynamics, just telling the child that, okay, when they say something mean, I want you to go, that's not mine, that's not mine, and literally push that energy out of your energy field. That's not mine, that's not mine, that's not mine. And I've got 30-year-old professional basketball players saying that. That's not mine, that's not mine, that's not mine, because it's not. Whatever energy to clear, because again, quantum physics, this is reality. It is not imaginary, quantified field. We are all just vibrating atoms. The denser the atoms together
Mm.
is we can see things with our eyes. We just see frequency. So this field still exists. So you're just trying to get it out of your field. You're avoiding the people that make you feel bad.
Yeah.
And then also disengaging. So when we find ourselves, and much like with an intimate abusive relationship, when we find ourselves defending ourselves, it's like, nope. We know when we start to defend ourselves that we are shrinking, that we are trying to, rationalize and reason ourselves out of the abuse, right? In
Mm.
some ways. So it's be like, oh, when you find yourself defending yourself, I want you to disengage and be like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, and
I
walk
love
away. And it really triggers a person that's trying to get you as upset as them. Because
For
again,
sure.
we need to remember that people only pick on us and only say negative things because they don't feel good about themselves and they want you to feel bad too. Misery loves company, right? And so telling your kids, like the second they make you not feel good, or if they're saying something to you, if you can get away, get away. If you can't go, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way. And just continue to say it. And a lot of times people elevate if they're used to you reacting and
Yes.
trying to give them, they want your energy. And
Mhm.
so with the quantum physics based stuff, I really got into because my undergrad was sexual science, master's is social work. And then I started understanding some of these energy dynamics on a deeper level because that's really what we need to do to protect ourselves when it comes to trauma, right? And the negative outcome within the nervous system.
Right.
So thinking about it like that and these energy dynamics and just, nope, that doesn't serve me anymore. That person's blocked. Done with this person. And it's the same thing with friendships. If they don't make you feel good being around them, get away. They are harming you. This we don't have time in this world to stay in relationships that are harmful. But
Yes.
yeah, the little kids, we need to teach them disengagement. We need to teach them going, that's not mine, that's not mine. We need to teach them the second that they start to defend themselves or having to fight back. That's not healthy. We're out of here. I had about 11-year-old client come in and she was kind of scared to do the work. She'd torn her ACL and she asked if mom could stay in the room. And I'm always okay with mom staying in the room. And so it comes out, I said, did the coach ever say anything mean to you? He's like, yeah, he says da 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 da, all these cuss words at us. Mom dropped something behind me, horrified that this little girl's soccer team had been being sworn at all these years. And we're talking all the way back to age 7, 8 years old.
Oh
Mom
my
didn't
god.
know. So little kids don't know if they're not hearing cuss words at home or if they are using them and parents are like, these are adult words, but they don't know what is normal in a coaching environment, in a sports environment. So you need to educate your children and say, well, if your coach says any negative things or cuss words, mommy needs to know. If the coach says anything about your looks, mommy needs to know. If the
Yeah.
coach touches you inappropriately, mommy needs to know.
Yes.
You have to educate them because they don't know. You throw them out there and they think this is just what soccer's about.
Yeah. This is how
So
it is.
that's something,
That's
yeah, and
terrifying.
that's something I've learned from experience, not even thinking from my own perspective of like, yeah, all the creepy guy coaches. There was a golf coach in the past in where we grew up
Yeah.
who he used to touch our hair and our bra straps. He would push them back in the thing and come to find out the man was molesting the babysitter. I'm like, wow, red flag. Whoa. But I thought it was normal even at 14 years old. I'm like, okay, this is just how men react. Meh. No, not okay. Coaches should never say anything about your appearance, about your looks, nothing. They should not touch you inappropriately. There's really no need for a coach to touch you. And
Yeah.
that's another interesting thing that I've even found in the sports psych world is that I don't go support my athletes at the Olympics. I don't go to their competitions. I have no business being there. I'm a resource to them and I don't need to be there. That's another level of kind of predatory behavior as well as with the men. So there's particular sports psychs that I have seen working with national female athletes where they literally are putting their hands on the small of their back and taking photos with them. And I'm going, what is going on there? That is absolutely not okay. I would never touch one of my athlete clients. And so we need to teach our kids these boundaries. So that is my biggest thing with these parents of start fishing around and making sure these things aren't going on because your kids aren't going to know. Plus there's another kind of dynamic that, it's that fawning piece, but it's that Stockholm syndrome kind of thing too, that we need to
Mm.
be very mindful of. That
Yeah.
when these young girls are around these male coaches all this time, that they start to try to make them happy. And so if there are, using sexuality as a young teenager and stuff, and it's like start looking at those dynamics that's just not appropriate. And I
Mhm.
actually got a coach fired years ago for inappropriate behavior with the teenagers. And he was 21, so he didn't really see anything wrong with it. But it was so big what he was doing. And it was, and like I said, I don't always go after the coaches and the clubs anymore. I try to desensitize, but if it is a sexual harassment thing, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Game over.
Yeah. We're moving into a space of understanding the brain more. I mean, we only know about 10% of what the brain's capable of, but really understanding that we can reset the nervous system. We can
Yeah.
strengthen the vagus nerve tone. We can calm the nervous system to more parasympathetic, which is more that flow state and happiness. And we can calm that amygdala so it's not hypervigilant. We can bring more energy to the hippocampus, which is the resourcing part of our brain. We know this in neuroscience now. So even in
Yes.
sports psychology, some of the traditional stuff that we've been doing is 100 years old. So
Right.
it's stepping into a different thought process. It's moving with science. And like I tell athletes, it's like, well, do you want the knee replacement from 100 years ago? Or do you want the one that's new? And so it's
Yeah.
just where we're at with things. And not saying that the past skills and even psychotherapeutic techniques from back when aren't helpful, but we can push into understanding more and doing a different type of work. And really,
Absolutely.
and this work is not necessarily, and that's when I work with athletes, this is peak performance work. This is resetting the nervous system. This is enhancing reaction time. This is all those pieces. This is calming that body arousal of that body anxiety and then the cognitive anxiety. We separate the two in sports psychology as opposed to diagnostics. If an individual, if you find that there's some diagnostic component, I refer out to a local psychiatrist or psychotherapist to do that mental health work. But this is really when we're looking at that peak performance, biohacking, optimizing the nervous system. That's kind of where this sits. And it's
Yeah,
exciting
I love that.
because, yeah, science.
Yay. That's so good. And I'm so glad that we've moved beyond talk therapy in the psychology world. It's so helpful. I know talk therapy only got me so far, but
Mhm.
EMDR, brain spotting, somatic work, tapping, all of those things brought me to another level. And without those things, I don't know that I would have been able to heal from the physiological effects of my memories.
Absolutely, because that's the piece. We can, and in talk therapy, I know when someone's been therapized, right? They'll come in and they'll be like, well, I know that I have this attachment style and I have these tendencies and my mom was this and this. And I'm like, wow, you could write a textbook. But do. It's like, you got it. You are absolutely right with all of that. You have made sense of it. You have rationalized and reasoned it. But when we drop someone into the altered state, we're going into that limbic brain that accesses the body and allows for the discharged energy to be expelled and to feel those feelings fully. And the one thing that's always surprising to my clients, and I guess it was surprising to me in the beginning, but it's that I have an individual write out chronologically all the negative things that have happened. High levels of stress, mental, physical, emotional things have gone on. And when we drop someone in the altered state, and particularly if we cover one eye or the other, because covering
Mhm.
the eyes, we access different memories because our eyes are
Yes.
everything. They're our first line
Yeah.
of defense of everything. But you will find memories where you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot my preschool teacher told me that I wasn't good enough and that I was a bad boy. And I'm like, wow. So you created that belief system and that's where you stayed. You are not good enough. You're a bad boy and just continue to perpetuate. And then every single relationship that added to that trauma memory network and strengthened that reaction. So it's like when we get these reactive individuals who've had a lot of trauma, especially when we're talking about DV, their
Mm.
reaction is huge. One little
Yeah.
thing triggers them, they fly off, they um, punch the wall, they're doing all these things. You're going, whoa, what happened here? It's that trauma memory network response. And it's not excusing the behavior, it is
Sure.
that they need help. And if you're
Yes.
doing this and flying off the handle and hurting the woman, man, you love, get your help
Yep.
or else they got to leave because you're going to kill them. Because I do know that raging, it is disassociation. Very
Oh, yeah.
scary. And knowing too, documentation,
Mm.
documentation. You're going to want to say, oh, on this date, coach said this to my daughter. It's the same with DV, right? It's the same with any area of abuse. Even in work, I had a colleague who had grown up with my mom. She would poke me and touch me because I don't like that. I would like react and go, oh, stop, stop. I never said anything. Well, when I left, the girl who'd taken my position wrote me and said, did you ever tell our director that this woman was touching you? But she was mad at me that I never reported those things because I was like,
Oh,
yeah, she did, da, da, da. And she's like, well, why didn't you tell? And I was like, I guess I didn't realize what sexual harassment looked like at work from a
yeah.
female. I didn't really know. And so again, educating these young women. When you're walking into and you're working for some of these sports orgs, You got to document these things. This isn't okay. Let's hold our boundaries. We are paving the way for the next generation. We
That's so
are changing these behaviors. And it's our responsibility in that right to be modeling and showing. And I will never not stand up for and know and be consciously aware that, yeah, I am changing these things, that this is
absolutely.
my responsibility.
Yeah, and then there's, like, the fear of the whistleblower effect, like, well, if I do say something, am I gonna be shunned in my community? Is my mom gonna be mad at me? Are people gonna be mad at my mom? Like, all these things go through your head and, like, maybe I shouldn't say anything just to keep the peace, and like you said earlier, if you're trying to keep the peace, there's something wrong and you probably should say
Thank you.
something. So, yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
thank you. I know I've kept you way longer than I promised to, but I am so excited about everything we talked about, and I'm sensing an episode 2 because I know we could talk forever and ever. So, audience, if you have a question for Paige, let us know because we can make an episode 2 and do like a Q&A. Um, any like last message you want to leave with the audience and then tell them how they can get a hold of you?
You don't deserve to be criticized and hurt
Mm,
ever. It's never okay. And if it feels bad, get away from it. It's like, even though we are powerful, we know who we are, like we talked earlier, it will negatively impact you. It'll negatively impact your health, your energy field, and really what you can do for the world around you. So don't ever stay small and stay in these codependent, harmful relationships. It's just, life is way too short, and there are just so many people who will appreciate you and love you and value you just as you are in all rights
I
of your life.
love that. That's the best closing message ever. Perfect. How can they get a hold of you if they would like more information on what you offer?
All socials at Sportside Page, and then my website's robertsneurotraining.com.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you for being on. I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm grateful to be here as just trying to help anyone out there.
You are. I know you are. And I think what you're doing is so important. And I see some really fun collabs in our future. And I have to come see you because I haven't been to California in forever. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in and stay sparkly as always. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I just wanted to remind you about the resources we have on the reclaimstrategy.com. That is Reclaim University with free downloads. It's the Reclaim Guidebook, access to Kintsugi classes and events. So go ahead and take a look. Also, please share this podcast with anybody that you think might need to hear these messages. And if you haven't already and you think we deserve it, give us a 5-star rating. That just helps our reach. So I love you guys. Stay sparkly, and we will see you next week.